What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Volleyball Source Podcast. It is Tuesday, May 18th, and today I am joined by a very special guest, not only because who he is, but also because the news we've received today. So first and foremost, welcome to Justin Louis to the podcast, member of Stanford men's volleyball, just made named to the Canadian NextGen team. But Justin, we're going to get right to it because basically the best possible news, it's Christmas in May for you because it has been announced that the Stanford men's volleyball and all of the 11 programs that the Stanford Athletics were going to cut have now been saved, and you guys can continue playing for Stanford Athletics. How excited and happy are you about this news?
I don't think there are any finite number of words that could describe how happy I am right now. I mean, as soon as we got the news, everyone just on the Zoom call when we were with our team, everyone just started screaming and cheering and just like all these loud, profane noises. It was quite funny. And then everyone was just so happy to hear the news officially come out of our athletic director's mouth when we were on a Zoom call with him, and that made it official. And since then, I think everyone has just been like nonstop smiling. I'm not there right now. Like a lot of my team is back in California, but I've already like messaged them, FaceTime them, and talked to a bunch of them. And so, yeah, it's just pure joy right now.
It's already blowing up on Instagram. Everyone's posting about it. And I mean, it's great news. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and I was saying how there was so many points when I was thinking about this process that I just had no hope. And it sucks to say, but we kind of know in men's volleyball, we're usually the first to go. And for me, it was kind of like if a program like Stanford can consider cutting what is one of the most storied colleges in all of men's volleyball, what can happen to the entire sport? So the fact that, men's volleyball along with the 10 other sports has been saved is absolutely massive news.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was sort of in the same boat as well in the beginning. In July when they announced the decision to cut the sports, I was thinking like they wouldn't have made this decision if they didn't think it was going to be a final decision. But sort of the persistent efforts of our alumni and just the people trying to save our sports overall has definitely made an impact. And I know in this past month, they've been talking with the administration, and finally today they made the announcement that we're coming back. And so it's just basically a year-long effort coming to fruition. I'm just so happy for it.
That's crazy. That's crazy that not only you guys were put in that position in the first place, but also that the alumni group kind of as a whole was able to come together. It kind of shows how important it is, for just Stanford in general. How much fire does this give your team going into next season? Like, how much does this stoke the flames for you guys to just go all out? Because you guys have another life.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, again, I'm not there right now, so I can't speak to all of them, but I imagine a lot of us are now thinking of what next season's going to look like. So there's actually two sides of it. So the first is, like you said, I think everyone's just so excited that we're going to be back. And I think I guess we're going to play now with like sort of the feeling of no regrets, just kind of playing because we enjoy the sport and we know what it's like to feel like it's slipping away from us. But then sort of the second side to that is that I don't think we have recruited anybody because we were expecting our sport to remain discontinued. So with all the seniors graduating, I'm not sure what the next season is going to look like, but I imagine as a team, we're going to figure it out and we're still going to be successful in our own way.
Dang, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So basically you guys your coaches are already looking for recruits potentially.
I imagine. The thing is, people have already committed to going to universities now, so they're going to have to maybe ask walk-ons, or we're just going to have to deal with 12 people on the team, basically a club team. I don't know. I honestly don't want to speculate right now, but I'm in a meeting. Sorry. No, you're good. Sorry about that.
It's all good. You're currently quarantining at your parents' house in Durham. Is that correct?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm sure it's been. How many days into the quarantine are you right now?
I did 2 days at a hotel, so this will be my 10th day overall. So 2 days at a hotel, 8th day home.
All right. So you're in the home stretch here.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, you mentioned how many of your teammates have already committed to going elsewhere. Was that ever a thought for you? You know, was your thought maybe I can go and play somewhere else, maybe come back to Canada and finish my degree there?
Yeah, well, actually, I verbalized this to my coaches and teammates soon after the program was cut, just because I was trying to figure out what to do. But basically, I was sort of already accelerating my program at Stanford, and then I kind of just accelerated it even further. So I actually was planning to graduate in the summer of this year, and then head hopefully or potentially to UBC to continue graduate school while still like playing for their team. But seeing as our program came back, that I've already spoken to the coach and everything. And so I'm actually just going to stay at Stanford. But yes, I was planning to continue volleyball career and academic career at UBC.
Ooh, I mean, on one side, I'm sure Mike Hawk and the rest of the coaching staff at UBC are upset that they're not going to have you, but I'm pretty sure that UBC already has a pretty gnarly libero battle as it is. So adding you into the mix would have just made it, basically probably the craziest libero academy in all of Canada. So you know what? I'm happy that you have the ability to stay and play for Stanford and continue what is a really strong libero legacy there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly, that option for UBC was definitely more of like a savior option just because I didn't know what I was going to do. And so Mike Hawkins, like, I'm so grateful for him because he kind of like took me in and saying like, oh, we can help you in this situation because it was a tough situation for me not knowing what I was going to do next year. And so he was able to, even if I was going to be competing against, I think they have like 3 other like amazing liberos right now. So even if I was going to be playing like amongst them, and maybe not playing as much, I still would have been like super happy just to be there. So yeah, but I guess I will be staying at Stanford, so I'm thankful for that too.
But I mean, you spent some time setting at Stanford. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. But then also the other side of that, wasn't it kind of when you were being recruited, wasn't it kind of, what I heard, it was between Stanford and UBC.
Yeah, I don't know how you heard that, but yeah, I mean, just through the grapevine. I imagine, I don't want to say like those were the only options because I was definitely considering other schools and coaches to play under. But in terms of like where my preferences were as like a whole, I think UBC was definitely one of my top Canadian options, and then Stanford obviously was the top American and overall option. So yeah.
Fair enough. So it just made sense on a lot of levels. But luckily, hey,
Yeah.
you get to stay in sunny California, playing in San Francisco.
Exactly.
And wow, that's exciting. How many years do you have left? You were a redshirt sophomore this year. You still have two more years. Is that correct?
Actually, no. So I redshirted my first year, and then last year was COVID year, so we got our eligibility back, and then this year was just technically my first year.
Wow.
So I still have 3 more years in the NCAA, or like 4 in Canada. Not that I imagine I'll use it, but I do still have that remaining eligibility.
That's pretty crazy. So hey, the world's your oyster. You could stay at Stanford, like, but aren't you said like, are you pretty much done your program?
Yeah. So right now, yeah, basically in the summer I'll be done my degree. So currently I'm looking at pursuing a second degree, whether that be a master's or an adjacent bachelor's. I'm still like figuring out what that might be, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Wow. So you're gonna have to do a master's load on top of playing volleyball. That's not easy, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be too terrible just because this year I had to take we do a quarter system, which is like 10 weeks for every quarter. And basically I had to do like 6 or 7 classes per quarter. So totally I've done like 21 classes this year, or 20 classes, I think. But yeah, so switching to a master's would definitely be tough, but I imagine it'll sort of be like a similar load to this year, which was manageable, thank goodness. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to manage it. I don't know.
Dang. And so before, COVID, you thought of coming back to Canada. Is there any thought of you to go professionally? You were, as we mentioned, you're a member of the Canadian NextGen team, and definitely want to talk about that a little bit. But is pro volleyball kind of for you at some point down the road?
Yeah, so I've spoken with coaches within the national team program and college and just my own preferences. I do want to play pro. I was actually considering that this year. If the program didn't come back, I'd finish my schooling and then potentially look for a pro contract. But seeing as the program's coming back, I think I will stay maybe one more year, maybe two, I don't know, depending on what I'm doing, and then figure out or try and go pro following that, just so I can stay within like hopefully the national team pipeline and still be able to compete with Canada and in professional world.
Yeah, we can get into it now, but you are a member of the Canadian NextGen team, and as I said, as we were talking a little bit off air, I feel like this NextGen team has very much the feel of the B team back in 2011, 2012. And that was guys like Rudy Verhoof, like TJ Sanders, Nick Hogue was a part of the BT then, and it was very much the core of what we see as the national team. And I mean, we know that after this year's Olympics, we're probably going to see some retirements. And I very much think that, the next gen team that we're seeing this year is very much what we could be seeing kind of looking forward with the national team kind of moving into 2024 and into 2028. That being said, what does it, how excited were you to find out that you were going to be a member of this squad?
Yeah, really excited. I was kind of ecstatic when I found out because I mean the team is called 2024 like Next Gen Paris team or whatever. So that at first that's pretty encouraging. But it's also nice because I know a bunch of the players on that Next Gen team, and we've played together with junior team and just in the past. And so I do feel like, my hope is that this team will just be able to build chemistry this year and hopefully next year, and then sort of be leading into the next sort of a senior team when these guys retire. And so, yeah, that's pretty exciting to realize.
Now you've spent some time, as you said, with the junior team. Do you when you look at the roster around you guys, do you guys feel that you guys can compete with any other teams in the world?
Are you talking about our junior team experience, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because it's generally the same guys. I know a few guys are a little bit different, but I'm sure you have a general knowledge of what you guys are up against. Your squad had a bit of a rougher time at the junior at the World Championships than some of the previous ones. But in my eyes, the roster that you guys had was kind of up there. With some of the best junior national teams that we've had in the past few cycles.
Well, yeah, actually, it's funny they mentioned that. We did at junior national or the World Championships. Like, it wasn't great. We're kind of expecting for better. I think so. Not an excuse, but basically in our last week before we left, I think 3 of our players got seriously injured. So I think it was like Louis, Mike Dahaniak, and Braden all got injured in that last week. So they were like really key players for our team. And then Colton Liu at the tournament, like on the first day, got injured and had to be sent home. And then I know I got a concussion like the week before we left as well. So we were kind of just dealing with some very unfortunate circumstances going into that tournament. But I mean, even if we had our full team, it was still pretty disillusioning to play those teams because we were all fired up and ready to go. But they were just very, very skilled, especially at that age. Not to say that I don't think we competed, because I think we were still up there with those top teams. But they were definitely, it seemed like, further in their development than we were at that time. So yeah, competing in the World Championships was just really eye-opening to see how some of the other players our age are in the world.
That's very fair. I mean, you guys did have quite a tough pool, if I remember.
Yeah,
you guys
that was true too.
You guys were with some of the giants, so it was a tough one to say the least. But what is kind of on the docket this year for the next gen team? Are you guys going to be competing in like Pan Am Cup? Like what competitions are you guys going to be going to, if any?
Yeah, pending COVID, I don't actually know. I think the Pan Am Cup may still happen. Not sure where that is or when that is, but I think that might happen. As far as I know it right now, it seems like we're just training And then they told us like within the schedule that the Pan Am Cup is like to be determined later. I think that might be our only competition, but with the state of the world right now, I don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, just waiting to find out, I guess.
That's fair. Have you talked to any of the guys? Do you guys have a group chat at all before heading into Gatineau?
Yeah, there's a group chat just established with us, the coaches, ATs, and all that. And so people have sent in messages. I don't think anyone has been like chatting per se, or just texting off the cuff. But I have talked to a few guys who are on the team. I'm rooming with Matt Neves as well this summer. So I know a few of them just from past summers. So I feel like our rapport with the team will be pretty easy to assimilate to when we get there.
Of the new guys, is there anyone that you're excited to play with?
Sorry, of the who?
Well, of the guys, is there anyone you're excited to play with?
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly, well, it's nice to play with players that I played with on the junior team. That'll be fun again. But it's also good just to play with some of the older guys, like Byron and Brandon Coppers and people like that, just because I've seen them play in university when I was younger. And now I'll be playing with them, even though they're like 5-6 years older or whatever. So I think that'll be a really cool experience, and they'll definitely be sort of the leaders in the team and make sure that the level of play is like really high.
Yeah. What kind of do you have a different mentality when you come into the national team, Jim, as opposed to when you're training with Stanford?
Yes. So the national team is 2 days, and my focus is entirely volleyball. So I probably watch like tons of video while I'm training with the national team, and just like my entire focus is dedicated towards that, and that's what I'm concentrated on. But with Stanford, I mean, I have like tons of friends there, so it's more of the social aspect. But then school is also just in the back of my mind as well, so I have to focus on that, and then balancing volleyball on top of that. So Stanford's more of like a management of all these like confluencing factors at once, and just trying to be still good at volleyball while still good at school and keeping up with friends and all that, versus with Volleyball Canada, all my focus is directed. And I feel like I can do a lot more improvement. Even if there's less time, I feel like I can improve a lot more within the Team Canada training, just because there's just like a complete focus towards volleyball.
I feel like you're the type of person who's very like all in on no matter what they do. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, if I commit to something, I will. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I guess all in is probably the best way to describe it.
I mean, both in terms of how you approach life, because what was your major at Stanford?
Management science engineering.
Okay.
So, yeah, to that.
Damn. That sounds great. But then like also how you play volleyball, like you're very like all in the way that you approach the game. Like your reading is incredible. That's what I've always like enjoyed with the most of your game, is how I've seen you, especially in club. I've seen you make reads and balls that I didn't even know. Like you already knew where the ball was going almost before the hitter or the server did. Is that because of how you approach the game?
Well, first of all, thank you. And I guess, I mean, I think I've been conditioned throughout my life, just with all the things I do in school and volleyball and whatnot, to understand what it takes to be focused and sort of be in that mental state where I can put all my attention and all my competitive energy into doing something and completing that task well. And so I think that lends itself to when I'm on the court and being able to read as well as you say I can. And yeah, I guess, I mean, I guess it's just like, for me now, it's sort of an unconscious effect. Like I just kind of go out there and do exactly what I'm going to do. But I guess over time, that's just sort of how I've been developed, is just because I'm pretty competitive person. Not really like in your face kind of person, but just like a sort of quiet, intense competitiveness. And that's sort of how I play in volleyball as well.
Do you take that when you are either like, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. I apologize. No, but basically, like what I was trying to ask is, you mentioned like kind of video training. This is what I was trying to bring it to. But you mentioned
Okay.
you're doing two a days, and you're
Yeah,
watching video kind of in between that is, and that's how you prepare for your next practice.
kind of. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not like I'm preparing. It's just because this is what I want to do. So when I like watch myself practice, or sorry, when I practice, I notice things or I can feel like sort of a mental cognition with my body that like something isn't right. For example, in the fall, I was really trying to work on my hand passing. And so I was like trying to figure out how to position my hands, how to position the strength in which my body moves the ball, like just very nuanced things. And so I like constantly watch video about me doing it, and it's not because so much that I needed to prepare, but because I really, it's like a problem that I needed to solve within myself. And so I guess that's how I approach a lot of things, especially in volleyball, just like putting all this energy into solving problems that I feel like I should be able to solve.
So you're almost approaching volleyball from like a math perspective.
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's, I don't want to say analytical, but it's very system oriented. Um, and not to say that I can't go outside the system. It's just like I feel like that's how I've been able to get all these successful outcomes in the past, and I feel like that's who I've also admired of like people and how they work. Like I really enjoy that sort of uh, logical, rational mind, and that's sort of what I've implemented into how I improve myself, whether it be in volleyball school, other things.
Is Eric Shoji one of the guys you try to model your game off of? He's
Oh yeah,
obviously a legendary Stanford libero, but do you have a type of relationship with him?
I do actually. Yeah. Um, I've talked to him. I talked to him when I was like committing to Stanford, which is nice. But then, sort of over the years, I've messaged him. He's messaged me. I even talked to him like a month or two ago, just about my situation and how maybe I wanted to go pro and things like that. And he lends his advice. And he's definitely a role model in terms of both like how he performs on the court, but also his volleyball skill. And honestly, he has the best technique out there, in my opinion. And so that's definitely who I try to model myself after, at least in terms of a volleyball perspective. Yeah.
It's quite known within the volleyball world that it's tough to make it as a North American libero. Like
Mhm.
there's only a handful of them that are out there professionally. And I mean, we even see Jordan Pereira, who's just named onto the VNL roster. He wasn't playing professionally this year. He was at the NEP. Do you think that you have the ability to be one of those, top tier North American liberos that we see that make it professionally overseas?
Yeah. I mean, it might just be my youthful optimism now, but I do think so. And I'd like to think that I can have a successful volleyball career as a libero playing in the professional leagues in Europe. Um, and I mean, I'm just going to continue working towards that goal because I do think that is a possibility.
How much do you feel like you impact games directly as a libero? Because obviously it's kind of like the unsung hero position. Um, but do you feel like you can directly impact the outcome of a game as at the same level as say like an outside hitter or a setter can?
Yeah, it's interesting. And even as a setter, I don't think I've ever thought I've, okay, I don't know how to, yeah, this is my rational mind going right now. I want to say that I do, um, but I also, at least my internal feeling is telling me like that I don't always. I mean, sometimes I have amazing games where I feel like I definitely do, but most times I feel like I kind of just do my job, so to speak, and that in itself is the impact I give. But I wouldn't say it like changes or alters the state of the game, of what it would have been. But I do think I sure like I provide some good base or good reception, but I feel like my other qualities of like just being a good teammate, communicating with the passers. I love to celebrate, and so like just having that same intensity and competitiveness is what also impacts the game, though that can't be quantified or understood except viscerally. So I can't really speak to that, but I do feel like I have some impact, but maybe not enough to alter a game, only sometimes. I'm sorry if that's not a good answer, but
No,
that's just how I feel.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, I think
Okay.
you're right. It's so tough to quantify statistically how much impact a libero has. I on one hand of things, like professionally and in the FIVB, I really wish we had better stats. I wish we, statted serve receive on a 3-point scale. So we had a better notion. I wish we statted digs more. I wish we statted more. But at the same time, I almost see the libero position as like the free safety position or the shortstop, where you guys are very much that defensive back, like that defensive leader, both in terms of how the serve receive is being handled. Like you said, like if you're constantly doing doing video, I'm assuming that the tendency of every single hitter, and exactly how to position your serve receive, and how to work your defensive schemes, with the block. You're really that backcourt quarterback, leading the defensive scheme. So do you feel that way when you're out there?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good way to describe it. And it's definitely about a position that's recognized or that can be, like you said, statistically quantified. But I feel like in terms of everyone has their own style of leadership, and then people react to that style of leadership. And so I feel like I do provide a certain style of leadership that people can respond well to, and therefore have a positive impact on their game, which can't really be understood, but you can just kind of maybe feel it on the court. So yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it.
How do you find that balance between getting maybe too emotional? Because you said you like to celly,
Mhm.
you love the celebration. So how do you find that balance between getting too emotional and then getting right back into it for the next play?
Too emotional. I don't know if that's ever been a problem for me. Uh, or at least no one has ever mentioned that it has been a problem for me. Um, but I can see if someone, I guess, okay, so here's an example. We have like players on our team and at least players in the past who have expressed their intensity and competitiveness in a very aggressive way. And so people respond to that differently because some people think like they're just kind of like mad at the team when in fact they're just trying to show that they care and want to win and that they're competitive. And so I think in those cases, one could say that someone is being too emotional, but I also think the onus lies on the rest of the team to understand where they're coming from, and to like understand that this is the way they process their competitive emotions. And so I think there's sort of a give and take with that, in understanding like everyone has different ways in which they get like too emotional, but also the fact that like other people need to be cognizant of that and be able to respond effectively to that in the games, which is what I think makes an effective team, honestly, is just that sort of emotional intelligence on the court.
Wow. You broke that down incredibly well. That's I think that's such an important message, because you're absolutely right. Like I definitely we everyone knows those players who get emotional on that court. And sometimes, people take it personally, but I definitely think you're right. I think the onus is definitely on, the outside people to view that in a positive light, or, be able to kind of step in and help things out. Where do you learn that kind of emotional intelligence on the court? Like, where does that come from? Is it from the national team? Is it from Stanford? Or is it just kind of like your own philosophy towards life? Or does it go back to, like one of your old coaches? Like, didn't you play for Mike Richardson back in the day?
I did, yes. That was a great time.
I gotta give. I feel like I remember Mike Richardson, Uncle Mike, as we like to call him, at Madawaska, coaching you and a bunch of like a pretty stacked Durham attack team in like 14U, 15U, and you guys just passed the lights out of everything and were pretty gnarly. Didn't you guys win? I think you guys won provincial championships at the time too.
Yeah. So with Mike, we won provincials twice because he coached us twice, and then nationals in our 14 year, but not 15s. But Yeah, in terms of going back to your previous question, where do you learn emotional intelligence? I think that is just an immense question for society, because if we could teach people emotional intelligence, I feel like a lot of problems would just be solved in terms of understanding others.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can't speak to how you can teach that. I can just sort of recognize when someone has it versus when someone maybe lacks it. And I think that's just because like of how they cater themselves to different people, and sort of reading the room and understanding uh like their position within the room. And so yeah, I don't really know how someone teaches that, but for me personally, I think I've just learned that through experience. I would say that I'm like a relatively perceptive person. And so, and also that's also like what I'm interested. Like I also, I'm like, admire people who are also like that, like very perceptive and sort of emotionally intelligent. And so I guess that sort of develops and compounds over time. And once you have some sort of emotional intelligence in your early years, I feel like that just builds. And then you're able to see the fruits of your labor when you're in college, and being able to understand people who react emotionally to certain plays and to others. But yeah, I wish I could say how you teach emotional intelligence. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. So your your perception is such a weapon then, both for your team in terms of how you're able to manage the both the emotions of your own team, but then also like are you able to kind of read the emotions of another team and take that into account and factor that in as you're playing?
Yeah, that's so I wouldn't say I'm unique in that factor. I feel um like certainly there's okay, wait. I don't want to make a blanket statement. Um, I feel like there are people who are certainly emotionally intelligent. So I wouldn't say I'm unique in that regard, because I'm just one among many other people. But yeah, I do feel like with that, I can sort of distinguish when uh, someone is feeling like they're playing bad, or I feel like I also, I guess this is maybe a libero position sort of thing. Like other liberos probably can see this as well, but I feel like I can tell if a hitter is nervous when they're hitting versus when they're just like bombing. You can kind of see it with their confidence and how they celebrate and things like that. And so, yeah, I don't want to describe it as a weapon, sort of just a tool
But it's
among other tools on a
yeah,
team.
absolutely. But it's part of your toolbox, and it's a tool that you rely on greatly, kind of
Yeah.
both for good on your own side, by like reading your own players and seeing how they're playing, and then also on the other side of the net. I think that's a huge advantage and a huge part of the game that we don't talk about enough. You know,
Mhm.
everyone can talk about having great technique. Everyone can talk about being fast or physical, but being able to read the game is something that not a lot of people do. And I mean, like it's why guys like Wayne Gretzky, was one of the greats. So I mean, being able to read the game in my books is something that is not talked about enough. But it's in my opinion, it's what creates the greats.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So
All right. Well,
it's fair.
I like that confidence because I like a confident libero. Now, you switching gears here a little bit. I read how you came out to your Stanford team as gay in was it early winter or end of fall?
It was, yeah, in spring of last year.
Oh, spring of last year. Okay. So
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that must have taken a lot of confidence in itself. First of all, like congratulations. I'm very proud that you've been able to do that. Second member of Team Canada after Chris Voth, who has come out. So Chris is a longtime friend and has been on this show many times. So I'm happy to say that we now have a second out. I actually no third. Shina Joseph, if we look at the
Oh yeah.
women's team as well. But
Mhm.
what was that experience like? Because I'm sure it was pretty nerve wracking.
Yeah, I mean, leading up to that point, it was definitely a burden. Uh, and I felt that it was just too immense, especially when COVID struck. That's sort of when I announced to everyone, um, is when COVID struck, and I had more time to self reflect and think, and sort of understand my own wants in the world. And so then I told everyone, and then I just received tons of messages, which is why I love my team so much. I just received tons of messages from them, just commenting on my bravery and courage and the fact that, they still love me no matter what. And so, yeah, that was really nice to see and to hear. And then when Stanford got cut, I wrote like sort of a narrative story. And then, so sorry, let me go back. My coach asked each of us, when the program got cut, to write a narrative story about like sort of how we feel towards Stanford and all this. And so I wrote about my coming out. And then I guess he shared it with a news reporter, and then that's sort of how the article came to be.
Wow. So that must have been kind of so many emotions all at once. Like, not only are you going through a worldwide pandemic, but also your program is being cut and you're coming out to your team. Like, that's a lot all at once. Were you surprised to feel that amount of support from your team, or no, not really?
No, it wasn't surprise. So much as it was just relief. Because I had an intuition that they would be, at least probably all of them honestly, would be okay with it. So I didn't expect anyone to be like, saying homophobic things after coming out or anything like that. And then once I saw those messages, it kind of validated that fact. And that was just a huge relief. And now I feel like, I don't know, I feel very liberated to speak however I want, dress however I want, like say whatever I want. I don't feel like I have to fit into this box or this mold of what I expected myself to be, which in of itself is a great feeling.
Wow, that must be awesome. Does that extend to playing with Team Canada as well too? Like, did you tell certain players that you had played with on the national team as well too? Have you received similar support from them?
No, so I told like Matt and a few others, like just very close teammates that I've played with multiple years. So not everyone. But I don't really want to continuously come out and like say it. So if someone asks, all of you just tell them.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if they ask more questions, like obviously just tell them about it, because that's honestly, if someone asks, that's one of the most compassionate things like someone can do, is just to ask about that experience. But yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't try and like make it about me and be like, hey guys, just wanted to let you know, because I feel like I just don't really feel the need to continuously announce it.
Fair enough.
But that's just my perspective on things.
No, I think that's great. I mean, hopefully some more people will find out through this and share their support. I've never seen any negativity in that way from the volleyball community, and I think the volleyball community is very, very accepting. So I'm very happy that you felt comfortable to be able to come out in that manner, and I'm excited for you to be kind of a role model in that way, in whatever form you want to be in the future. Have you ever spoken to Chris Voth?
Yes, I actually message him pretty frequently.
Oh, it's sweet.
He gives me resources to read up on, and we talk, and I've called him multiple times. He was actually another person who was looking into like pro contracts for me and seeing like what he could do if Stanford didn't work out. And now he's going to be my coach for the NextGen, so I'm just really excited to work with him.
Oh,
because seeing. Yeah,
I knew that, and I've like talked to Chris because we've been trying to plan a podcast, but I didn't make those two connections together. So that's crazy. We're gonna have kind of the first openly gay athlete and the current openly gay athlete working together. That's incredible.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited because it probably won't change much, but it just feels like nice knowing there's someone else who is there, who sort of understands the long process that has been towards coming out, and so it'll just be nice to have him there as well, both as a coach and just like as a human being.
Do you think that's going to change now, as obviously it's pretty much normalized other than a few outliers, but do you think that's going to change now as more and more athletes start to come out, that we're going to see almost all sports kind of have openly gay athletes among their ranks?
Interesting. This is actually a curious sociological phenomenon, because like in some ways you would think that that would be the case, but you look towards like the NBA or the NHL or sort of these like major league professional sports,
Mm-hmm.
and you've not heard of anyone coming out during their time as a professional athlete or before or whatever. And so I imagine there'll be progress made where like you'll see more and more people being visible. I guess it just hasn't happened yet. I mean, even in the Olympics, there hasn't been a gay person or a gay man competing in like a team sport.
Really?
And I think it's, yeah, at least not in 2016. I don't know about the Winter Olympics, but yeah, and I think it's just because I also, again, don't want to make a blanket statement, but sort of just as a feeling that there are certain social interactions that are harder to experience when you're gay man, and I think that sometimes disincentivizes people or gay people to continue in sports, particularly in the professional world where there's sort of this like a masculine vibe being emanated, and yeah, I feel like that turns a lot of people away from that life, even if they're capable of reaching a professional level status. Um, so yeah, I, that's just sort of my big take on it. I can't speak to whether anything will change in this next year. I'm hoping there'll just be more and more progress being made. But yeah, that's just what I've seen.
That's fair enough. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I know the kind of the slurs that I received being a volleyball player, like when I played hockey as well. You know, you'd miss a hockey game for a volleyball tournament, and I know that I received the slurs as like a straight guy too. So I could definitely see how some cultures might not be ready for that yet. Nothing against hockey players whatsoever, but and I mean this was almost 15 years ago as well.
Yeah, I mean, even in volleyball though, I've heard, I haven't been subject to anything, but I've definitely heard people just throwing around homophobic slurs, and just insinuating some very unfortunate things
Yeah,
in my time. So yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I remember one of the first people to come out was a guy by the name of Brian Fotley at Queens. And basically, if I remember the story correctly, is that he was basically quitting from the team after having been an all-star for them at nationals, just because kind of the slurs that were thrown around casually. And once that
Yeah.
was kind of brought to the attention, it was, kind of stopped ubiquitously across the team. And, he was able to, kind of return to the team and continue to be a very successful member of the team. And I know for me, at like being, this was like 10 years ago now, almost kind of starting to show my age. But for me, that was definitely, the opening up of my eyes to stopping that language as well too. So hopefully we can end that kind of language in volleyball together. But I'm glad to hear that you have not received any hate and only support, because I mean that's what it should be.
Yeah, yeah, I've been fortunate.
Now, with the national team this summer, um, do you guys see yourselves as kind of that next level of team, like that the guys that can step into the national team, right away?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I haven't been with the team at all yet because just it hasn't happened. But I feel like that's the general consensus among everyone, is that a lot of the guys on the senior A team are getting older and potentially retiring just due to injuries and old age and whatnot. And so I think a lot of us are seeing this summer as an opportunity to be able to train and get better. And hopefully next year, for us at least, there'll be more spots open and more opportunities for us to play with the senior A team. And so this summer is sort of like kind of leading into that, I think. Yeah.
When did you start wanting to play for the national team? Obviously you've represented Canada before. You've got the jersey hanging in the back. You got to rep it. But when did that start becoming a reality for you? Was it before or after you guys won Canada Games with Team Ontario?
I think it was that summer actually, because so I think that summer I got Quest for Gold, which is just sort of a financial program for athletes. And then as part of that, they said I could go to the national team tryouts for the June team, even though I was like 16. And so I went and I was like, okay, this is just gonna be, we'll see what happens. And so I guess like I played okay. And then the coaches cut me obviously, but we're like, oh, like we hope you'll be here next year trying out. And I was like, oh, okay, like we'll see what happens. And then the next year I tried out and made it. And so yeah, I think that's when once I started getting into the pipeline and then making the junior team is when I was like, okay, maybe this is like a potential for me.
It's crazy how many athletes from that Canada Games cycle are now on this next gen team. You know, it's
Yeah.
other than like older guys like Brandon Coppers and Byron Katarakis, it's pretty much all of those guys were competing for the various provinces. You know, the Elsers were over at Alberta. You had the BC boys. Of course, Braden Friesen was for Saskatchewan. How much fun is that you've kind of seen the progression of that team, like, and you've known these guys after competing against them and with them, kind of overall the years.
Yeah, it's been nice. Just because there's sort of this I don't want to say brotherhood, but this sort of camaraderie among everyone. We even joke. It's so funny. Like we always talk about the Canada Games whenever we're like on playing on the junior team, or I guess this summer I imagine we'll talk about it again. And it's quite nice because Xander and I are on Team Ontario, which won, so we always got a leg up there. Yeah, but it's funny just talking about like all of our past experiences, how we've sort of shared those as we've improved over the years. And so it's nice that we're going to be on the next gen team together, because we'll just be able to get things started as soon as we get there, because there'll be no need for us to like reintroduce ourselves because we've sort of known each other all these years.
I think it was so great when they decided to move the Canada Games age down, because back in 2013 it was U21, and I mean I did think at the time that there wasn't going to be any big stars from that, because like it was the guys a lot of the guys at that age were already playing on the B team, but still we still had Nick Hogue playing that tournament. Ryan Sclater was in that tournament. Brett Walsh. There was still some pretty big names, but yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of what happens with your guys' age group, especially just because there's so much firepower, but so much good talent amongst you guys, and I really think that you're leading the way. One thing I forgot to ask about from Stanford from before, but how was it playing this year? With the knowledge or the thought that you guys were, this was the last season. Like, how difficult was that to go through the season, especially a COVID season like this one?
Yeah, it was weird. Just because we actually didn't even get to train before. We kind of got there in late January, and then we started our games like early February. So we just kind of were thrown into season right away. So we kind of had this uneasy feeling like, oh crap, like everyone else has trained for months on end, and we were just kind of getting thrown into the season. Like we had 4 freshmen and 2 transfers, so 6 new people coming into our team, which in itself is like kind of difficult, because now you have to develop chemistry and bonds with these new guys. And so yeah, it took a little while to figure out what we were doing. But in terms of our last season, I think, well, all of us obviously wanted to make it to the national championships and compete well, but we also, a lot of us just wanted to enjoy this last experience we're going to have as teammates. And so at practice, it was like both intense, but also there was moments of like happiness and fun, and just sort of smiles on people's faces. And so sort of balancing those two factors of being both competitive and enjoying this last season is kind of how we framed the season. And yeah, that's just kind of how we went about it.
Wow. There's a lot of ways that could go south, right? In the season, not in terms of the way you guys approached it, but the season. Like, there's a lot of ways that, the season could go south. So it's very commendable that you guys were able to keep kind of a level head. But, will you guys be getting Jalen Jesper back next season?
I don't think so. This is going to be, yeah. Because he's already moved on to grad school, which is amazing because I think he'll be playing at Pepperdine and doing grad school, which is like unbelievable.
Mm.
And then our other seniors are also finished their academic years at Stanford. So it's not like, plus the application for graduate school and all that, like completely over. So I don't even know how they'd be able to stay. So yeah, I think we'll be losing him among many others, and we'll just be sort of short players for next year.
Hey, maybe you could play outside.
Yeah, oh, I don't know about that one.
No, just
maybe.
just stick to setter, or would you just rather be the lib?
No, I would rather, because I haven't had an official season. Like first year was redshirt year, second year was COVID, and I had to set for half of it, and then this year was like barely 2 months long, and it was just like in this COVID times. So I'd like just a real full season of being able to play libero. So yeah, that's my hope. But if I have to play outside, I'm totally fine with that. I'll just do some beach stuff.
Do you see like a lot of difference between like volleyball in Canada and like NCAA USA style ball?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference. So in Canada, all the top teams, and even actually, you know what? Like, there's a growing number of like really good teams in Canada, but I think the top teams sort of rival the top teams in the States. But I think what the States has an advantage over is the fact that like every team is really good. So it's not like some weekends you'll be playing a team where you can just blow out pretty easily. Like every team is pretty competitive, especially like in our conference, like the West Coast conferences. And so I think that's a mild difference between, nothing against like the Canadian schools, but I do feel like the American schools just have just like a larger number of people to compete against. And so that all the schools are stacked with like really good players. And so it's pretty good competition for every time you play.
That's fair enough. I mean, you're the one who's down there playing it, so that's definitely your call. Do you notice a difference stylistically? Like I've always found that the American style is much more of like a banger style, especially playing with that Molten. They love to just rip on it from the baseline. Like they love the just big banger plays.
Yeah, serves are crazy with the Molten ball. Some people can really rip it. Trying to think. Stylistically, I think so, because I've never actually played in like a U Sports match or anything like that, so I don't know exactly what it feels like. But just knowing from like Team Canada stuff, like Team Canada is very systematic, which is something I like. And they sort of do things a very specific way that allows them to be successful. But I think in the US, every team has a very unique identity with how they play. So some people will go like Pepperdine ran super quick offense, where in Canada I don't think you'd ever see anything like that. Like it was just so quick. Versus other teams are like just like BYU would mainly throw up like higher balls, and like they have all these like really talented international players just banging on balls. And so I think there's in the US just a diversity of different systems in which teams play, which is something I don't think you see as often in Canada. I could be wrong. I don't know. I haven't really watched Canadian ball in a while.
That's right.
But yeah, that's just my opinion of it.
What's it like playing against some of the potential next generation guys like Gardini and Gabby Garcia at BYU, Rado? Like, what's it like playing with those kind of names who are already kind of known volleyball names in the world?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's sort of just like another competitor. But I guess specifically speaking for like those top players, I sort of get a little more fired up because I want to make plays against them. And so yeah, just because like those are the big names in volleyball, and you'll definitely be seeing them. I mean, Gabby already, I think he's doing like a pro contract somewhere in Italy or something. Like you already see these guys like moving on.
Yeah, I think he's going to
professional ball. Yeah. So like he's already set in stone for his volleyball career. So yeah, I kind of when I play against them, I really just want to make as many plays against them as possible. And that's sort of my feeling towards that.
Do you ever think about like potentially playing them like, years down the road, whether it's like professionally or maybe for Team Canada? Like, do you ever think about that? Maybe obviously not in the moment because you're thinking about it, but whether it's on the bus and being like, you know what, like I feel like I'm going to be seeing these guys for the next few years, and they're going to be wearing some different jerseys, and so am I.
Yeah, I want to say yes, but no, I've never once thought that.
So
I think
you're more of the in the moment. Let's focus on what's now, as opposed to daydreaming a little bit.
Wait, I do daydream. But I don't know. I guess that thought has never crossed my mind. Like, it's an interesting thought to be like, oh, and like maybe in a few years we'll be playing against one another. But as of right now, um, I've just never had that thought.
I'm just thinking about like, the world champion, or, getting ready for the Olympics in 2028, or maybe even, 2032 if we make it that far. And just seeing like the throwbacks to the 2001 NCAA, and like having all of the names of different different guys. I definitely think you'd be on there.
I think if I was playing against them in a professional setting, I would reminisce on the time that I played with them in the NCAA, and I'd be like, wow, look at where we've come since then. But being in the NCAA and looking forward, I can't imagine that future self yet. And so I've never really had that thought of being like, oh, look at where we're going to be in years.
I'm calling it now, and we're going to be able to look back on this, and this is kind of my stamp, and being like, look what's happened. But no pressure,
Right.
no pressure.
All right.
I feel like you don't feel pressure very much. Like, I feel like you handle pressure very well.
Don't know. I think I would need to get a barometer of how other people feel towards pressure. Sorry, I know that's just not the response you're looking for.
No, I'm not looking for any responses. To be honest, I love your responses. They're
okay.
Honestly, they're unlike most responses that I get, and I love that. Like it's clear that you are much smarter than I am, and I like that a lot. Like you sir are very smart and very analytical, and I love that from a libero.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, in terms of dealing with pressure, so first I think I would need to understand how others deal with pressure. So let's sort of like to tap into that psyche. But I do feel like with how I deal pressure, it doesn't really surface for me. Unless I don't know, unless things are going really bad. I think the last time, I wouldn't even say it's pressure, more of like, wow, I'm shitty. It was back, I had one game again on the junior team my first year against the US, where I was playing a bunch of my teammates. And I started out fine, like I was playing well, but then once it got to the second, third, and fourth set, I was playing absolutely terribly. And that was like a terrible game. And that was sort of when I felt the pressure. And since then, I don't think I've really succumbed to anything pressurous. Like I definitely feel it at moments, but I wouldn't say it overtakes me. I'm kind of just like, I take things as they come and just move on. Like it's not really a big deal kind of thing.
Does anything faze you?
Yeah, I mean, things do faze me. Okay, another thing is I've noticed this too, just sort of self-reflecting and journaling, is that since coming out, I've just been able to deal with things in a lot easier way. And I've also reflected on the fact that maybe it's making me less emotional, like it's sort of desensitizing me to a bunch of things. Like when the program got cut, I was obviously very sad and kind of disappointed, but it didn't really faze me because I feel like I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm faced with this situation. What are the possible routes that I could take from here? So yeah, I don't know. Things probably do faze me. I think I would just need to realize them in the moment to understand how they faze me.
Wow. You are simultaneously a robot and a fully empathetic and emotionally intelligent human being. I don't think I've ever like interviewed someone quite like you. I love it.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll take it.
I mean that in like the nicest way possible. Like you break everything down very analytically and very thoroughly as well. But at the same time, you have a very like human and emotional aspect to the way you approach things, and I don't think I've ever spoken to someone who has equal amounts of, like traditional intelligence, like IQ and EQ and emotional intelligence. And I think that's pretty special.
Thank you. Actually, that's a good way of describing it. That's what I've aspired to be, is to approach human conditions or social conditions or issues from a human aspect, but also understanding the sort of systematization behind it and the rationality behind it. Because for me, I think truth is probably one of the most important things. So it's not just feeling, but understanding like whether what you're feeling is in itself true. So that wasn't really a good way or eloquent way to describe that. But yeah, I like the way you described it. Is both a robot and someone with EQ. I feel like maybe that's a good way to describe me.
I just think you seem to be very smart, both in a straightforward IQ way, but as well with a high emotional intelligence, and I think that leads to a lot of success. I think that is going to lead to a lot of success. And man, if there's anyone who's out there and who's like younger and who's listening to this, like try to employ like what he's talked about today, just because I think it will lead for a lot of people to be more successful and I think happier overall.
Yeah.
Is that
retweet?
Is this like I kind of want to go back to that. Is this something like that you've taught yourself? Because obviously you can't just like you didn't go to school for this. But is this something that you've kind of taught yourself over the course of your own life, or is this something that you've always found yourself having?
Yeah. I don't think this is something I've always had. No. Okay. I don't think when I was younger, I could realize that this was something I had. So like my consciousness could not understand that this was something I had, but I feel like maybe it was there. But for me, it's more of like, it's really a general curiosity. Like, okay, let me think. I have one book there. It's actually my favorite book by Robert Greene. It's called The Laws of Human Nature. And so I honestly just like understanding human mind and just human behavior. Like that just interests me. And so I think that in itself, like because I seek out understanding, then that just allows me to understand these very great topics within myself and within others. And so even though I do have an analytical, logical mind, I feel like my interest of having this emotional side to me allows me to have like the best of both worlds, I guess.
No, I like that very much. I know that book very well, actually. I read that one while traveling around back in 2019. I think I bought it in like the Frankfurt airport or something. Wow. when I was at Worlds. But I mean, I suspect you said it was your favorite book. I suspect you've read it a couple of times then, and that's a hefty book to get through.
A hefty book. Yeah, I've read it twice, and I like to like if he makes really interesting quotes, I'll just like write down certain quotes. And I'm reading right now his other book, which is another hefty one called The Laws of Power.
Yeah.
And so that one's also
wanted to
really
read that one. I haven't got to it yet, but I've definitely wanted to read that one. He's got a very like pragmatic and like straightforward approach to the rules of human nature.
Yeah. I think my favorite part is that. Sorry, I'm just gonna nerd out about this book.
Go for it.
He doesn't like. It's not a self-help book where he's trying to tell you something or you should do something. It's more that he's using classical and historical examples to illustrate these social phenomena in practice, so that you can kind of interpret for yourself how this phenomena plays out in the real world, which is definitely what I find most interesting about his writing.
Wow. We've gotten so far away from volleyball, but I'm actually
sorry.
No, not at all. Don't be sorry at all. I'm stoked about it. I'm stoked to be able to like learn, because I've known you for a long time through Madawaska and through watching you play at OVA. But it's exciting to get to like talk to you and get to know you on this level. I'm very excited. Kind of the more I hear you speak, the more I get excited about your potential future as a volleyball player. Just because I feel like you are already doing things that are going to lead you to so much success, regardless of what you do. And I'm very excited to see how that applies in a volleyball fashion, because I think you're going to be able to kill it, and I'm very excited that you're playing for us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty excited too.
Awesome, dude. Well, I really can't thank you enough for coming to chat with me today. I know you're in the middle of quarantine and stuff, so I know you've got tons of stuff to get back to, probably. But do you head straight to Gatineau once your quarantine's done?
Yeah, so the quarantine ends like Saturday night, and then I leave Sunday morning to get a COVID test in Gatineau, and then hopefully start training as soon as possible.
How long are you guys training there this summer?
Okay, I don't know the exact dates. It goes from when I get there Monday, so May 24th, and then I think it's 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and then we get 3 weeks off in July, and I think that's when the A team actually comes back and trains before the Olympics when they're done VNL and all that, and then we come back after they leave, back in like late July, so then we train from July till August again.
Wow, so you're just there for six weeks of 2-a-days, and you guys get started on Monday. That's in 4 days. No, 6 days. 6 days.
I was gonna say, wait, yeah, 6 days. Okay, yeah, I think so.
That's crazy. Well, dude, best of luck once you get out there. I mean, as I said, I do have very high hopes for this NextGen squad, just because of I know the quality of athletes that we have out there, and I definitely am very excited to see what you're going to be able to do with that roster. And then also, I mean, I don't know if congratulations is in order, but I'm very happy to know that Stanford volleyball is back, and that you're going to be able to be back and be a Cardinal once again in the fall.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited for next year as well.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you taking the time, dude. Have a great training with the NextGen team, and I'm sure we'll talk to you sometime soon.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.